Welcome back to Cameras, Crowns, and Chaos. I'm your hostess, Lindsay. I'm here with Nash, and we are wrapping up towards the end with this Bachelor recap. Now, I have to apologize because we did record our podcast last week. Unfortunately, it did not get uploaded because right after we recorded, even though I thought I had it backed up to the cloud, I had to go get a new phone. So it's okay. You only missed the Women Tell All. No big deal. Any major highlights from the Women Tell All?
I think the big thing is that the drama around Rose, Grant, and Carolina, and what Grant said. Was he thinking about Rose when he was dancing with Carolina? That's not what he said, and we basically think basically it was on Rose.
Right. It was on Rose. Yeah. It was on Rose. Even though I was not a big Carolina fan, it was definitely on Rose. When push came to shove, Rose said something to Carolina in a private conversation that she, of course, thought, like, this is never going to get back to Grant. And then Carolina was like, yeah, no, like, don't tell someone that you're thinking of them while you're dancing with me. So, of course, she confronted Grant, and rightfully so. And Grant was super classy when he clarified it. And she was like, Rose was like, I'm sorry. Like, I guess, it was a misunderstanding. No, there was no misunderstanding. Not at all. I think Rose felt threatened by Carolina, and she never thought that would get back to her. Mm-hmm. So I like the way that he cleared that up. I like that it was really classy. There were plenty of other things that we talked about. I think it was about a 40-minute episode. But for me, that was the real takeaway, was how Grant handled that situation, and that it was not Grant. He didn't do anything wrong.
Yep.
So then we moved on to last night.
Yeah. So they're in the Dominican Republic.
Yep. He has family ties to the Dominican Republic. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Can you expand upon that? Because I actually I came in like right as he was saying this. I was getting my dinner ready.
I was talking to Carly.
Okay.
But something about
his grandma.
I think his grandmother was from there originally.
Yep.
Yeah. So he said he does go back there, like, not overly frequently, but maybe like every few years or something. So, so we start off in the Dominican Republic, and we start with, oh my gosh, I don't have my notes because we're recording on my phone today, and my notes are on my phone with names, but we start
with Juliana.
With Juliana, yes. And Juliana is having a sit down with Daisy. And Daisy is one of my former favorite contestants. I absolutely adore her. Daisy I believe she has a hearing loss. I'm pretty sure I don't think she's like fully deaf, but I think she's very close to fully deaf. Mm-hmm. And that was something that she had revealed when she was like on a one-on-one during her season of The Bachelor. And she's just fabulous. So I loved the advice that she gave Juliana, and Juliana, told her that she's so excited and she's so happy, but she's really nervous because she just wants to find someone to love her. She just wants to find someone to love her for her. Mm-hmm. And I could really feel like that real, true, raw emotion. And I felt like there was an internal struggle with Juliana as she was talking to her. And then later on, as we saw with Grant, where I think that Juliana is there. Like, I think she's in love. She's right where she needs to be. But I think she's still pumping the brakes because she's so afraid that he won't pick her. Mm-hmm. And her delicate heart might not be able to handle it.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, I said, I came in a little late as the episode was coming on. And so during this talk with Daisy, who I didn't even catch her name, I wasn't quite in the zone yet. Mm-hmm. So I kind of missed a lot of the stuff that they talked about. It kind of just like went over my head, honestly. But yeah, it's good to get a refresher from you because, like I said, I missed some of it.
I'll be here for the refresher. You be here with the notes. Okay. So it was a really nice conversation. So then Juliana and Grant went on to their date, and they, got in a side by side, and they went mudding, mm-hmm. and it was really cute. As soon as she pulled her helmet off, she was checking her hair, and you could see Grant looking at her like, yeah, no, you're gorgeous. Like, you don't need to be worried about that. But she seemed very concerned about what her hair looked like and what she looked like. And so that was just like, fun part of the date. But I did say to Carly while we were watching that particular date that if I were the Bachelorette and I had these final 2 or 3 men, I think I would tell the producers, like, I don't want a fluff date. I don't want, mm-hmm. I just want to have the entire day with no plans. Like, if we decide we want to do something, great. But I want to have the whole day to really just take in everything about who they are and really get to know them and not be distracted by loud noises or, crazy activities like bungee jumping or zip lining or, anything like that. This is such a crucial time. So, but that's just how The Bachelor goes. They always do the big fun date. And
I think that's also true, like, not just on The Bachelor, like in the real world, right? When you go on a date with somebody, usually there's, your central activity that's planned. But during that time, it's like you're kind of focused on that activity. That's not when you're getting to know that person.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
And you're realizing then, like, you can have fun with that person.
Right. Yes.
Like, you can have so much fun. And that's important that, like, you know, you can go and you can have a blast. That's a big part of it. Because I also feel like when you're having those fun moments that are playful and silly, you also kind of see that, like, okay, we could have chemistry. We do have chemistry. I'm attracted to this person, but you do have to dive deep. Yep. You have to have that time to dive deep.
Yeah. And I think especially, you know, I mean, the Bachelor and, you know, any reality dating shows is basically a speed run edit engagement, you know, like,
for sure.
So I do think that those like deeper connections are more important, and especially between Grant and Juliana and Grant and Latia. I think Zoe was a little bit different because she hadn't gotten a one-on-one date up to this point. But especially with those two, where they've already had a one-on-one date, it's kind of like, yeah, I agree that I think it would be more beneficial to them to get to know each other on like a deeper level and have, you know, some more like downtime rather than, you know, like a big exciting planned date. So 100% with you.
Especially when, you know, we keep seeing these teasers where he's like, I'm in love with multiple women. Actually, he keeps saying, I'm in love with multiple women. No, it's women. Okay. I don't know what is wrong, but this world is falling apart. This has been something that has bothered me for the last couple of years. I started noticing it a few years ago that people do not know the difference between women and woman. So let's just go ahead and take a reading rainbow moment to teach you. Woman is singular. Women would be plural. So, for example, I am a woman. I am not a women. I am a woman. If there were 3 women in this room, we would refer to them as women. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting off my soapbox, but that drives me so crazy.
Well, then what's woman's?
There is no woman's. It's
just
women.
Joking, just joking.
Okay, I was like, seriously?
No, I didn't catch that though. I didn't even catch him saying that.
You're the smartest person in our family times 17. Like, is that a real question?
You never heard somebody say that though?
Woman's? Yeah, where's the woman's bathroom? I don't know. We don't have one, but we have a women's bathroom. I feel like I am a nice person, but there are things that I could be very mean about, very petty about. Don't push my buttons. Like, don't say the wrong words like that. There's another word too that Carly and I have noticed that they say a lot on the Bachelor franchise, and they say it wrong. I'll have to ask her what it is. I can't think, but every time they say it, we're like, rah! It's just weird. Anyways, moving on.
Was there something they were reading, like from the card? I think it's something like Jesse says. There's a
Jesse
word,
does say it.
What is it? Yeah, there's a word
Jesse
he says.
is one of the people that says it.
Because I caught that last night. I was like, why is he saying it like that?
Okay, I didn't catch it last night.
But I don't even know what it is. Right. It's funny.
I'm going to find out from Carly because it drives both of us bonkers. And I've heard it outside of the Bachelor franchise too, but it's just the way that they say this one particular word that I guess I have it like blocked out because it's traumatic every time I have to hear it.
Sure.
Anyway.
Okay.
So
back to Juliana. I did have this, and I did actually have this is something she kind of expressed when she was talking to Daisy, but she also re-expresses it to Grant. It's basically, you know, and there's also something Latia expresses to a certain extent, that, you know, well, he's still dating 2 other women. I think what's interesting is this is kind of the same kind of complaint that like Carolina had earlier. But the difference is now there's only 3 of them, and things are a lot more real. And, you know, back when Carolina was complaining about this, there was still like, you know, 8 girls around, like other than herself, you know.
Carolina was just ahead of her time, I guess.
Right.
You know, I don't know, for lack of a better word.
Trailblazer there. Yeah.
I feel like with Juliana, like I said earlier, I totally get her hesitation. I get her fear. And my guess is that she's been very, very hurt in the past in a romantic relationship. And so, you know, she's trying so hard, but she was crying to Grant last night and telling him, like, I'm broken. I'm a broken person. And he said, but that's what love is for. Love can fix that. And I loved that. And he was crying too. And I don't think he ever said he was broken that I recall, but
I think he did say he said there are broken parts of me too. Okay. I think he did say that.
I was going to say at the very least, I feel like he implied it.
Yeah.
And so I really loved that they had such a deep, genuine moment together. And I can really, truly see the draw between the 2 of them. I understand why he is so drawn to her because, you know, she wants love in the same way that he wants love. And he knows that with her, he's going to have a wonderful family. She's going to be a great woman. Like, he can see it with her and it makes sense. And she can see it with him. But of the 2 of them, I think she's the one that's probably holding back a little bit more. And I'm not saying she's really holding back, but I think if we had to measure it. She's holding back just a hair more than he is.
Right. Yeah. And I really don't think that's like through any fault of her own. I think
No.
that's part of the Bachelor process. It's just the nature of it.
For sure.
When you know that there are two other women, that you're competing against. Like,
for sure. Well, and he said last night, he said to her, I can't remember. Did he tell her that he loved her? Or was that only Latia?
He told Latia that he loved her. I believe he said, I'm falling in love with you.
Yeah, he said he was falling in love with her. And then she said, you're a keeper. I'm going to keep you. And he said, I'm going to keep you. And I remember thinking, my face went right to her and she's smiling. But I remember thinking to myself, if I were her though, right now in my head, I would think,
do you really mean that?
You might.
Right.
You might keep me. But like, if what you're saying is true, then go tell the other two girls to scratch.
Right.
Tell them to go home.
Right.
By the way, fun fact, I don't know if this is true. Carly told me this last night that she read on one of these Bachelorette blogs that the first fantasy suite date that they air has never been the final pick.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, we also suspect that the actual first fantasy suite was Latia. Because when he left Latia and he said, I don't know, maybe I should just go tell the other two it's done. It's over. I don't know, So I don't know. that was just kind of like our.
Well, okay. So he told one of them, I don't remember if it was Latia or Juliana. He said, I'm not going to see you for a few days.
Juliana, I believe.
Okay.
I believe it was Juliana.
So to me, that would imply that she was chronologically first.
Yeah, that could be.
Assuming that all the fantasy suite days are back to back to back, which I don't know why they wouldn't be.
I'm guessing. So I've always wondered that. Like, I'm guessing that they're probably back to back to back. And then, because they always say, like, now I'm leaving her and now I have to go. Now I'm going to be going on the date with so-and-so. But I also always wonder, after the very last fantasy suite date, like, so if he wakes up on Saturday morning in that final fantasy suite, is the final rose ceremony on Saturday night? Oh, wait, no, because he has to eliminate. So then he eliminates. But then, like, I always wonder how much time he has between those fantasy suites and the actual final rose. How much time does he have to, like, sit, deliberate, think, Yeah. It's just a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure.
Although I'll say I think the choice was pretty clear this week.
I mean, I think so, too. I do.
We'll get to that when we get to it.
Okay.
We haven't even talked about her.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So they wake up the next morning. They both seem happy. She seems relieved. She seems like she feels a lot more confident. It just seemed like a good wake up. And I love that she said, I feel like I woke up next to someone that I've lived with for several years. I love that. Like that. I mean, there's a lot that you can do in the fantasy suite. And obviously everyone's brain goes right to like the physical intimacy, but the emotional and mental intimacy and really getting to know each other, that's a long time to spend with someone. It really is. So,
right.
So I'm really curious to see how it plays out in the end between the two of them, but I feel like I know where things are going.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on that one?
Three things.
Okay.
Finishing off what you just brought up. I do think that either one between, whether he chooses Latia or Juliana next week, I could see the other one being really like devastated by not getting chosen.
For sure.
Because I don't think that there's a clear choice after this week. So
for sure. At least not to the women. Like right. I think
maybe Grant, from the previews it seems like he is not going to be even super decisive.
Which they do that a lot. They always Jesse always says, in the most dramatic Bachelor finale in history. Sure. But this really does seem like when Jesse said to him in the preview, like, look, man, like I need an answer because I need to know who to send first.
Right, because they're on their way now.
Right now, yes. So, like, I don't know. I feel like both girls feel confident. I think Latia feels more confident, but I think she still has a little bit of a guard up. I think that Juliana is just hoping and praying that it's her. I think she feels confident in their relationship. She feels confident in herself and in Grant and in her love for him and in his love for her even. But she knows that Latia is still there. And so she's just so scared. Yep. She's so scared.
Last thing about Juliana. Did you catch her monogram pajamas?
No.
Oh, it had her initials on it. And I thought that's cute. It was fancy.
It is fancy.
Yeah.
I noticed that they were like a little black silky set, but Oh yeah, that's very fancy.
Yeah.
It was very fancy.
Anyway, that's all I had for Juliana.
Well, I think Grant's like, I think he's pretty well off. So.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he can buy her more sets of monogram pajamas.
For sure.
He's got his Ferrari. So.
For sure. Yeah. I wonder how many monogram pajama sets you could get if you traded in a Ferrari for them.
At least a couple.
At least a couple. at least, for sure. I don't know. I don't live that life. Me monogramming is taking a Sharpie or using my Cricut and putting some vinyl on my, like I'm fancy. Yeah, so moving on.
Next up was Zoe.
So Zoe sat, and I honestly cannot remember Zoe was talking to a girl named Rachel. And Rachel was from the last season of The Bachelor, and honestly, she just wasn't my favorite. I don't know what it was about her. She's not like rude or mean or anything like that. There's just something. So Rachel for me was never one that I personally was like, oh my gosh, like, I love her. I don't know. There's just something that didn't sit well with me with her. And I really didn't feel like she gave Zoe great advice. Basically, Zoe was like, look, I just, I want to get to know him more, and I want to feel confident in us and in our relationship. And I want to be able to walk away from here knowing that this is my man. And Rachel was like, yeah, just like go in, have a good time, have conversations.
Right.
Cheers to that. And I'm like, okay. So basically, girlfriend just got herself a free trip to where were they at?
The Dominican Republic.
To the Dominican Republic.
Right.
For some real shitty advice. I mean, I don't know. I guess there's not a whole lot that you can say, but I did see the parallel in them having Rachel and Zoe be the two that got paired up to speak to each other, because Rachel also did not have a lot of time with him overall, like in her season.
It did seem like they made an effort to like match up their situations, which I can appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. So then he and Zoe, they go on to their date, and I'm not going to lie, I did a little fast forwarding. I really did. There, like, sometimes Carly and I, we do this every season. Like, there will be certain dates where we're like, nothing significant is going to happen here. We're just going to fast forward. So what was their activity? Because I can't remember.
They did silent yoga.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They did silent yoga.
Yeah. Oh, also, before we get to that, real quick, she said in a one-on-one interview to the camera, she said, I could start falling in love. And immediately I was like, yeah. All right, you're done.
Yeah.
I was like, sorry,
bye,
but
get out.
It's too late in the game for that. So yeah I kind of knew at that point. But
for sure.
Yeah, so they did silent yoga, which was very funny to me. I did watch the whole
I watched a little bit of it, but it wasn't much.
Overall though, there were some, funny things. Grant is struggling with like being quiet. He kept talking because it's awkward,
Right.
And he's also struggling with the yoga itself, which was funny. And then he says in like a one-on-one interview with the camera, he said, honestly, I was just trying not to fart. And I died at that.
Dude.
I was like, that's so real. Have you ever done yoga?
No, but who couldn't relate to that? I mean, have I tried it in my own living room by myself? 1 foot on the floor, trying to put 1 foot in the air and not topple over? Yes, I've tried. And I'm like, yoga's not for me.
I tried it once, and I'll just say it was a very similar experience. It was at a hot yoga place, but it wasn't hot yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was warm. It was hot, but not hot yoga temperature. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like the more like chill version of it. So they have like soothing music playing. But yeah, the whole time I was just like, don't fart.
Yeah, see, that would be my fear. You know what I'm sitting here thinking right now? Maybe we need to rename this entire podcast from Cameras, Crowns, and Chaos to The Adventures of Nash and Lindsay. And like we can still talk about all the things that we would talk about, regular whatever topics, but we can go try shit. Like yoga.
Yeah.
Like I want to do the goat yoga. Or like I've seen one before where it's like baby puppies. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna pay you my $15, however much it costs. I'm gonna lay there on the floor and I'm gonna let the puppies just eat my face. I'm just gonna let them lick me. I want to hold them. I want them to snuggle into my neck. But I could do that with baby goats too. Yeah, goat yoga. Actually, I don't know if they're baby goats, but I think that they're those little teeny tiny. I forget what those are called.
Yeah, I don't know what they're called either, but
yeah. Well, I did note that when they had like their private time later on in the evening, he told her that it was uncomfortable, and she told him that it was uncomfortable. But I kind of feel like they were coming from two different places. I felt like she was meaning more that it was like just uncomfortable physically, and he was like, yeah, it was uncomfortable on every level. That's how I took it. That doesn't mean that that's what he meant. But they touched a little bit on that. But I gotta say, my respect for Zoe in terms of her own self-respect really grew a lot last night, because I loved that she said to him, look, we haven't had a lot of time together. And I feel like I've told you a lot about me, but I need to get to know you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's not just here to win. Like, she's here to make sure that this is her person.
Yeah.
Just as much as she might be his person. And so what did he do? He was like, well, my favorite color is blue. My favorite color, or my favorite thing is this. And I'm like, that's surface level shit.
Yeah.
Like, dive deep. Like, this girl needs to know. So you know about her family. You know that she's got a fractured family situation. That's where you start, which he did get into that for, his own family and himself. But I liked that I don't want to say held him to the fire or put him on the spot, but she was like, look, tell me, like, I need to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get to know you. So I really like that. And seeing the dynamic between the two of them, I think if they would have met in the outside world, I think that they really would have had a chance. I think they just didn't get enough time together.
Yeah. I think, given the timeline of the show, I don't think they really could have ever worked on The Bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, given a longer timeline, they could have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. I don't think The Bachelor was enough time, even if she would have gotten a one-on-one date, I don't think it was enough time for them to both unpack all of their things. I don't want to say issues because that sounds rude. I have issues. I have so many. Like Vogue magazine. But
it's funny that, and I don't mean to use this term pejoratively.
I don't even know what that word means, dude.
Offensively?
Oh, okay.
So Dina got called the Ice Queen this season a lot. Yeah. I think Zoe is kind of the Ice Queen of this season.
I would agree.
I just think she's very walled off, and I don't mean that to be rude or offensive.
It's not derogatory.
Yeah. It's just, I think that she has sort of defenses built up, for whatever reason, everybody does, and to some degree. And I think that she is the kind of person that it would take a long time to earn her trust.
I agree.
And
to really melt her down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, so The Bachelor probably was just not the best choice for her. Agreed. Overall. You know what I mean?
I agree. Unless she was there to advance like her modeling career or whatever, which, I don't know, or her social media presence. But honestly, she doesn't even seem like someone who would be trying to become famous from The Bachelor. Like, right. I don't get that. Like, I've definitely gotten that from plenty of people. She does not seem like one of those people. Like, she actually seems pretty focused on what she's there for.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of stuff to say about Zoe, but she definitely grew in my book last night. So of course she accepted the fantasy suite, date card, and they had their fantasy suite, and then they woke up the next morning and, same thing, different day. Everybody seems happy. Everybody seems relieved, relaxed, all the things. I didn't really have any major takeaways from that I can remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't even remember the next morning thing for them, really.
Yeah.
Other than I think they were on the beach, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's right. Carly was like, so we didn't see them like wake up in the morning. That was interesting. You always see them wake up in the bed. Like, or not wake up, but you always see them in the room. And I wonder if that was partly Zoe. Like, no, this is an intimate part of my life. And even if they weren't physically intimate, but like, no, you're not coming into the room like that. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I did for a moment there think that Grant might end up picking Zoe over Juliana, because I think he could see so much potential, but he knew he was further along with Juliana, but he could see the end of the road with Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely started to get a little bit nervous there with that. What were your thoughts on that?
I didn't. If he had picked Zoe, it was going to be a big shock for me. I will say at the rose ceremony, I was like, if he gives the rose to Zoe, the last rose, it was going to be like, no way.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's never happened on The Bachelor. I'm sure it has. But, to me, at least from a viewer perspective, it just seemed he was so much further along with Juliana and with Latia than with Zoe. So
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I just was worried though. I was worried that Zoe might end up, I don't know, somehow pulling rank and get get a rose. So we leave Zoe's date and we move on to the one that I think everybody really wants to see, which is Latia.
hmm
Because at least for me, I feel like Latia is the one. Juliana is so close behind. But Latia is that full ready package for him, and she's not bringing, a whole lot of hurt and brokenness to the table. I think that's the only difference really between her and Juliana in terms of like, if I were Grant, like, how would I narrow this down? Juliana's going to need more support. Latia might not need the same kind of support. Obviously, you have to support your partner, but he goes into his date with Latia, and and wait,
but
going back,
she talked to Katie.
yeah, so Latia had talked to Katie, and Latia told Katie that essentially, like, she, isn't really comfortable with him having these overnight intimate moments with other women. She knows that it's part of the process, but she's really trying to, like, kind of compartmentalize, but she's struggling with that. And who was it? Katie.
hmm
Katie gave her really good advice, which was, like she said, when I went on my one-on-one, I was like, I don't want to know about anything else. I don't
hmm
want to know about anything else that has happened. And we can be mad about that later. Like, if it's you
Right.
and I in the end, we can be mad about it later. But I don't want to know about anything that happened. Let's just enjoy our day. And Latia was like, yes, yes. Like, I don't want to know about it. She said, I just want to be able to enjoy the day and not feel angry or hurt or stressed out. But at the same time, I also kind of felt like maybe I had misunderstood Latia's initial thoughts and intentions, because initially I thought she was saying, like, basically, if he did have a one-on-one with anybody else, she
It
wasn't
was
going to have
yeah.
one.
Yep.
It was like very black and white.
Well, yeah, and it seemed, and so last night it seemed like Latia was essentially saying like, I can probably forgive that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm into Grant enough that I can forgive that
Right.
if it happens. The other interesting thing that I thought, and who knows, maybe this got taken out in the edit or something, is that when she does tell him that night, she says, "If you did anything with anybody else, I don't want to hear it." If
Mm-hmm.
I'm Grant, I'm going to reassure her and say, "I'll just tell you, I did not."
I didn't. I didn't. Right. I
Right?
know.
And the fact that he didn't
You're
say
like,
that, I don't think that
oh.
it's, I don't think that that's revealing of anything necessarily, but that I'm just saying that's what I would do in that
Oh, for
situation.
sure. Me too. 100%. Because I would be like, well, you don't want to know, but I just want to reassure you nothing happened.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened. So when he chooses silence and he doesn't say anything, I'm like,
Maybe.
they were
And
knocking the boots. Somebody was knocking the
right.
boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's,
Obviously, we
but
don't know. And that's their private time. But I do feel like that would have been a really great opportunity for him to just be like, no, we didn't. And then honestly, even on the flip side of it, like, I'm about being honest about that. But I also might have still said, no. Well, no, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have. Because I was going to say, then you're kind of also saving face for like someone else if they didn't win, if you didn't pick them or whatever. But no, no, I wouldn't have. I would have, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, she was,
yeah, I thought overall Katie's advice was good though. I thought it was
I did
the
too.
most useful advice out of the three.
1,000%. And I
Um,
think that, like you said before, they strategically put each of the women with a specific prior contestant,
yeah,
and they put them with the right prior contestant.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so they go ziplining on their date, which wasn't
Hmm.
like super long because I think it seems like they did like two zip lines and then Latia got sick. She said she felt nauseous.
I didn't believe it though. I didn't believe it because at the beginning she was like, I don't like adventures. Like, I don't do adventures. And I was like, what's that outfit that you're wearing then? Because it was very adventurous. And I thought, well, you know what though? That could just be like her workout outfit or whatever.
Right.
But she was like, I don't do adventures. So then when she was like, I have a tummy ache, I was like, likely story, Latia. Like this story. You just pulled a page out of Lindsay King's book, is what you done did. But she was still a good sport. They did their zip lining. It was cute. It was fun. I know she was so grateful when it was over.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then they moved on to,
So they were like swimming in I don't know, like a
yeah,
natural.
some kind of a natural springy thingy.
Yeah, yeah. I don't
Yeah,
even
it
know what to call that.
was beautiful.
Yeah. a place I would like to go.
For sure. For sure. We were born in the wrong area.
Really?
Like, what the hell?
Well, I like the cold. I'm okay with it.
No, I do too, but like also I would love to have like a beautiful natural spring like that in my backyard.
Right, yeah.
Even though I don't get in the water, but it's whatever.
Yeah. And I think the big takeaway from this part is that they kind of talk about, or well, I think this is actually later at dinner, but they talk about how what their like sort of ideal timeline for starting a family is, and Latia's like 2 years max, and Grant is like it's a little sooner than I'd like, but I mean, like Latia says, she has 31. That's the age you really have to start thinking about that you got to do this soon, or there can be lots of complications. The further you go down the line, et cetera, et cetera. So
and honestly, who knows? Like everyone's biological clock is different. It's possible. I mean, I don't really know anyone personally that couldn't have children past like 32 or 33.
Right.
But you just never know. It's not as if she's 25.
Right.
She's not. I mean, she's in the prime of her life right now, but she's right there at that prime baby making stage, but it's going to start diminishing soon. She's not building up to that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he said, I always envisioned, like spending a little bit more time with my significant other and kind of doing things with them and traveling and, doing activities and probably more adventures. So that definitely seemed to kind of like put him off a little bit, but then at the same time, I feel like watching the rest of the date, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So Latia told Grant, I don't want to be intimate. Like, I'm not going to be physically intimate. And she, oh my gosh, when he was like, here's the date card or whatever. And she's like, you're a great guy. I'm like, ooh, this sounds weird. She's like, you're
right.
a really...
That's like almost like breakup speak.
Right. Like, you're a really great guy, or you're a really good man. But I just, like, I don't even remember exactly what she said, but basically she told him, like, I'm guarding myself, I'm guarding my heart, and I don't have any plans on being physically intimate. And he was like, I can respect that. And then he said, I love you. Oh, what were you going to say?
No, you're good. Yeah, because I at first I thought that she might just altogether turn down the fantasy suite and like not even spend the night.
That's what I thought was happening.
Yeah. And then he said, I love you. I was like, I mean, I believe he means it.
I do
but
too.
It also felt a little manipulative.
Right. Oh, it's okay. I love you.
Right.
So that she's like, you do?
Right.
You love me?
Yeah.
But I do. Like, I definitely I did not feel like it was manipulative with him. I feel like in general, if you would describe the situation to me, I'd be like, that sounds a little manipulative.
Right, yes.
But with him, I actually thought it was pretty genuine. It felt pretty sincere. So he told her that he loved her, and she said, I love you too. And so then she picked up the date card a few minutes later and said, well, what do you think? And I think that caught him off guard, because I think he took it as we took it, like, this thing is off the table.
Yep.
And now I think she's rethinking this situation. And he said, it's totally up to you. Like, whatever you're comfortable with, it's totally up to you. And so I will say, I was so glad that she took that fantasy suite date, because like I said before, I don't think that you just have to be physically intimate in there. I think that you can just use that whole night to talk, to get to know each other, to ask all the hard questions, all the things. And I suspect that that's probably what they did. Like, I also noted that, like, normally when you see them in the fantasy suite, like when they go to the next morning, they're laying there in bed, talking, cuddling, kissing, whatever. To me, it seemed very intentional that he was out of that bed.
Brought her breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's not to say that they didn't sleep in the same bed, but I felt like maybe that was her trying to protect her image a little bit, which I can definitely appreciate. And she's got all these nieces and nephews, so she wants to be a good role model, a good example. So yeah, I definitely thought that was, I liked that. I liked that. So he left her, and they both seemed, happy, but Grant seemed a little overwhelmed, because I think that he realized in that moment, like, I really love this woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he said, should I tell the other two that it's over, that it's Latia?
But he also said that he that he feels very similar about. And then he said someone else.
Right. He didn't say who.
He didn't say who, but obviously, I literally wrote obviously Juliana,
Juliana,
right?
obviously.
Yeah. And I also thought it was kind of funny, early on in The Bachelor, there's a lot of sort of like neutral language. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, all these beautiful women,
Right.
I'm forming connections with all these women, and now it's with somebody else, with one
Yes.
other person, not two other women, one.
One other person. I
So
agree.
I do think it's just interesting to see that language change there.
For sure. There was something else that I wanted to point out. Oh, he said last night that, like he feels so strongly about Juliana and he's falling in love with her, but that Latia is the picture of the woman he came in looking for.
Mm.
So that spoke a lot to me too. I think with Latia, he sees safety, he sees structure, security, all the good things, like all the things that you like have down on a list on a piece of paper that you can just check off.
Mm-hmm.
With Juliana, she might not be quite as stable. Her timeline might not be the same as Latia's, but I think that there's something bubbly and fun about her, whereas Latia seems to be a little bit more just like even keeled.
Mm-hmm.
I love both of these women, and I told Carly last night that these of the top two that I can ever, I'm sure that there's been plenty that I'm like, oh, I really like them both, but usually I'm really leaning towards one, like, please pick this one. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, do not pick so and so because that person is going to be a nightmare. But out of these two women, or with this season, I feel like these two women are my most favorite top two as a whole that I've ever seen. I do feel like they're different, but their hearts are so similar. Their character, their values are so similar. So Grant definitely has a type that he's going for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I think so too. I think the main difference is that Juliana, and not that Juliana is edgy, but she has more edge than Latia,
Right. Agreed. Yeah,
and
I
she
agree.
might be closer to Grant in that respect.
Yeah,
So I would think that those are the two. Latia is what he came in looking for. Kind of someone who's going to be totally focused on being a wife, being a mother,
for sure.
and not to say that Juliana won't be focused on those things, but she, I think I don't know exactly how to
Like
say it.
Juliana might have other aspirations as well, where I think Latia, she's making it very clear. My number one aspiration is to be a wife and a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Juliana wants those things as well, we know, but maybe she wants other things and maybe it's not on, such a tight timeline. I
Right.
feel like the best comparison that I could give between Juliana and Latia is like a saltine cracker, that's Juliana, or that's Latia, and a Ritz cracker. Like the
Okay.
saltine cracker, it's going to nurse you back every single time when you're sick. What do you ask for? You're like, do we have any saltine crackers? Like you need a little something in
Right.
your belly. That saltine cracker, it's there, it's stable, it's good for you. But then you have that Ritz cracker, and that Ritz cracker has that little bit of buttery flavor. Get a little bit of buttery oil on your fingers after you eat it. It's just got that little bit of extra edge.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
Yep.
that's my thing between the two of them.
Yep.
What's the word? Analogy? I don't think that's the word.
Simile? Is that a simile?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Comparison.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
That
list my
works.
comparison. I'll go with that.
Well, did you have any other thoughts on Latia?
I did not. I did not. No.
Okay.
Oh wait, I will say another reason why I think that she might have chronologically been the first date is because of the way that she watched him walk away. I know this sounds really dumb and I'm probably reading into it, but she just seemed very intense watching him walk away, like wondering like what is he doing?
Mm.
Is he going to just go tell the other two women it's off? What's happening? But then like you said, she told him, I don't want to know. But you know what? Maybe he couldn't answer that question because he hadn't been with anyone else yet, and he's not allowed to give it away for the editing purpose.
But how? Why would she be asking him that if he had
Oh, yeah, that's
already?
true. Because I wonder if they know what their order is. Maybe
Oh,
they
maybe they
take
don't
them
even
there
know.
and they're like, all right, so this is the week of
Mm-hmm.
one on ones, and the week is going to run from, you know, Sunday to Friday.
Right.
And you don't know where you're sprinkled in that lineup unless
Mm.
you're on Sunday
Okay.
or you're on Friday or, whatever.
Yeah. I could
I don't
definitely
know.
see that.
I'm playing conspiracy theorist here. after that, I'm thinking like, oh, the episode's over. But then I forgot he went and he saw his parents.
Right. Yep.
And his parents, he said that his parents hadn't seen each other in quite some time. They had divorced 7 or 8 years prior. And, I thought that they gave him good advice, but it's a little bit concerning. Like his dad was like, you're a good man, you're a good person. Like, I want to see the best for you. Of course, all parents are going to say that. But I don't think it was in last night's episode. I think it was in a preview to come. His mom saying, Grant, I want you to walk away from this because she feels like he's too torn between these two women.
I've seen that in one of the previews too.
And I worry about how his parents' interaction and interference is going to impact this whole thing, this whole decision. I don't know if we touched on this or not last week. I feel like it was just something that Carly and I had talked about, but at the Women Tell All, at the very end, when Jesse was standing up there and he was talking about, excuse me, he was talking about, we're going to show you a preview and this is the most dramatic Bachelor finale in history. And Grant was just standing there and he looked like he could barely muster a smile. I think there is a slight possibility that Grant walks away alone. I think that that's a possibility because if you go back and watch that, he could not keep a smile on his face. Like he kept trying, but he just couldn't. And you could just read it all over him. So I suspect either he leaves alone or he leaves with a woman who he then ends up regretting that he left with. But the great thing is next week, after the season finale is over, they will immediately follow it up with After the Final Rose, where Grant and his lady will come out and they'll talk. And so we'll get to hear, all their thoughts. And that's always a good episode as well.
Okay.
So, I'm not really sure where it's going to go from here. Do you have any predictions?
I really don't. I really don't know. I would say I think he leans like 51-49 toward Latia.
Agreed.
Right now.
Yep, because she's safe.
Yeah, but I don't know.
But just because she's safe doesn't mean that she's not the right choice for him. I'm just saying I think he looks at her as safer. Oh, she's a couple years older than Juliana, I think. You know what I mean? Like she's exactly what he's looking for right now, and Juliana might be exactly what he's looking for like in another year or so, Right. So yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays out. I think at the end he will end up picking Latia. I could be wrong. He could pick no one. But I guess time will tell.
Yeah, we'll just have to see.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, we already kind of covered, Zoe did not get a rose, obviously.
Yeah, Zoe didn't get a rose.
But, we kind of discussed that.
And I felt bad for her.
Yeah, I did too.
My heart hurt for her.
I thought she, actually carried herself really well. I thought her exit was very graceful.
For sure.
But I will say, I don't think she was heartbroken that Grant didn't choose her because they had such a great connection. Obviously there were some tears and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it was more about, when will be my time? When will I find somebody who will appreciate me? And I mean, not that Grant didn't appreciate her, but
will truly appreciate everything that she is and not be able to let her go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I definitely think that Zoe, I think that she was sad that it didn't work out, but I think she wants her person.
Yeah. I think it was kind of similar with Dina last week or 2 weeks ago, actually. They were both, I think they both kind of knew maybe, Grant and I, that's not for if it's just The Bachelor or it's just us, not going to work, but whatever. I think they both kind of knew going in, that they weren't compatible in that way, at least within the confines of The Bachelor. Maybe outside's different, whatever.
Sure. Completely agree.
Yeah, but it is still, when somebody gets along that far, just to be told no, you're not the one, well,
especially after a fantasy suite date too, because we don't know what happened in the fantasy suite.
True. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I'd be pretty pissed off if I did stuff in the fantasy suite and then I got sent home.
Yeah.
That would, I think it would actually, I would be angry. Don't go to that level with me if, unless for sure I am the one. But at the same time, there are two people that are making that decision. Like,
Right. Yeah.
so if they were intimate, she also had a place in making that decision as well. So it's not all on Grant. I'm just saying, I think it would tear me up in kind of a different way. So
Right.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to next week. I was thinking maybe what we should do next week is we should get together and watch this last
Oh,
episode.
yeah, for sure.
And whether we watch it here or we watch it at your house, we should do that because yeah, like I just really would love to see a finale and an after the final rose with you. I think that that would be fun.
Yeah.
And I wish that there was a way that I could do like a live broadcast of the podcast. There probably is, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still figuring this out. But that would be fun too. But we could also be recording some clips like in between on commercial breaks, that kind of thing, giving our thoughts
Yeah.
and sharing them that way.
That
So,
might be fun.
look out for that because who knows, we might do that. But I have no other thoughts about this episode.
Yeah, that's all I had too.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you again so much for watching. This was the Bachelor recap of the Fantasy Suites with Grant and the ladies. Make sure that you come back next week, tune in, make sure that you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon Podcasts. Until then, I'll see you later. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Nash.
And that's it for this week.